Well, it's happened. An atheist has finally come up with something that, it just debunks Christianity. It's just simply not true.
This is a joke, right?
Did you know that if I was born in Saudi Arabia, I wouldn't be a Christian and therefore Christianity's false?
Well, that's stupid.
Or at least that's the idea that is being portrayed by the atheist that I'm going to respond to today. In this video, I'm finishing up the last 10 questions in 78 Questions for Christians from Hemant Mehta of the Atheist Voice YouTube channel. If you haven't seen his video, you can click it down below, and I'll also click the playlist down below that has all the videos of all the questions that I've answered off of this video. We're going to hit the final 10 questions in this video, everything from you wouldn't be a Christian if you weren't born in America to why there are natural disasters. Let's go. All right, let's jump into the video. If you haven't subscribed, click that subscribe button and let's go.
Who or what do you think is responsible for natural disasters like earthquakes or tsunamis?
So Hemant asks, who or what is responsible for natural disasters or tsunamis, earthquakes, things like that? Now, before answering this question directly, I want to quote Richard Dawkins, who is an extremely popular atheist who is a scientist. And I want you to hear what this atheist says. Richard Dawkins says, in a universe of blind physical forces and genetic replication, some people are going to get hurt, other people are going to get lucky, and you won't find any rhyme or reason to it, nor any justice.
That's depressing.
That's Richard Dawkins. In other words, if God doesn't exist, then it's all natural. There is no disaster, so to speak. How do you determine what a disaster is? If there is nothing but natural processes, it's just natural processes. There is nothing disastrous about it. You have no basis to determine what disaster is. There's no rhyme, there's no reason. It's just natural processes taking place. But this kind of raises a question. Why cry out against the injustice of natural disasters if this is simply the way the world is? If it's just naturally the way the world is, why are you upset about natural disasters? Why cry out about the injustice of it? And try to place this on God. On an atheist worldview, it just is what it is. So why cry out against the injustice of it? You see, when someone objects to natural suffering, they're actually invoking a moral law, which can only be traced back to God himself. You see, they're trying to say, if God's all loving, then why would these natural disasters happen? These natural disasters are terrible. Why would God let this happen? It's immoral.
I need an answer now.
All right. Here, you want an answer? The answer is...
Well, how can they appeal to any type of moral code if God doesn't exist? There is no objective morality. They can't say it's immoral. It's just natural processes occurring. So for them to claim that it is immoral is actually appealing to a moral code that could only come from God himself. But setting that aside, let's talk about a couple of important things about natural disasters. First of all, with natural disasters, it's important to note that while there are negative impacts to natural disasters, and we look at those natural impacts and that's why we call them disasters, some of the mechanisms of natural disasters are actually things that that cause natural disasters, are actually things that we need to sustain and create life. So for example, tectonic plate movement enables nutrients from the ocean floor and from the Earth's crust to actually recycle back into the biosphere.
Well, shoot.
Volcanic eruptions release excess pressure and gas back into the atmosphere. And actually, volcanic ash actually releases minerals into the soil. Even flooding itself can be beneficial in that it deposits nutrients into the soil.
All those stupid little facts.
I want you to hear what scientist John Polkinghorne said. Now, scientist John Polkinghorne, he is actually a physicist. He's a theoretical physicist, and he actually played a role in the discovery of the quark. And the thing about him, he's a Christian. And I want you to hear what he said. He suggests that God has created a universe with particular natural laws that make life on Earth possible so that humans with free will can exist in the first place. So as an example, the same weather systems that create tornadoes that kill humans also create thunderstorms that provide our environment with water needed for human existence. The same plate tectonics that kill humans and earthquakes are necessary for the regulation of soils and surface temperatures needed for human existence. So he's saying that these are natural processes. God didn't design the world to have natural disasters, so to speak, or that it would harm humans. Earthquakes and the shaking of the ground wasn't designed to harm humans. They were designed to actually create life and create a life-sustaining planet. But humans get harmed due to choices we make, human free will choices. So for example, humans often rebuild along earthquake fault lines. They build in hurricane pathways, oftentimes cutting corners on building guidelines in order to save money. A lot of times natural evil is sometimes caused by or aggravated by human free will choices. So natural disasters happen as a result of the natural world operating the way the natural world operates.
Wow, that makes sense.
Nobody's causing it. God's not in heaven causing natural disasters. They're just natural. And many times the loss of life and the damage that comes from them is many times either aggravated by or caused by our own choices. But the big takeaway is to the question, who or what causes natural disasters? Well, they are indeed natural. Let's look at the next question.
Can you pause the video right now and tell me what the 10 Commandments are?
Yeah, I can tell you what the 10 Commandments are. Have no other gods before me. Don't have any idols. Don't take the name of the Lord God in vain. Honor the Sabbath day, keep it as holy. Honor your father and mother. Do not commit murder. Do not commit adultery. Do not steal. Do not bear false witness. And do not covet your neighbor's goods.
And if you know them, and good for you if you do, why do so many Christians believe that the first 4 of them belong on government property and in the classrooms?
So the question is, why do the first 4 belong on government property? And the first 4, it's interesting that he seems to have no problem, or at least doesn't question, the last 6, which, do not murder, do not steal, things our laws are actually based in, those kind of same principles. He has no problem with those. He at least he didn't question those. He talks about the first 4, which is, having no other gods before him, no idols, not taking the Lord's name in vain, and remembering the Sabbath day and keeping it holy. And he says, why should we have those 4?
Yeah, why? Why?
Well, those are the 4 that have to do with God, and the last 6 have to do with your fellow man. Well, there's really 2 answers to this. Now, why do Christians believe it should be on government buildings? Not all Christians do. And the Christians who do, it's not that they're demanding this must be on government buildings. Most of the time it's just saying, hey, these are in government buildings and they shouldn't be removed, or you shouldn't just take them down, or there's not an issue with them being on government buildings. But the reason why the first 4 are necessary and not just the last 6, there's 2 reasons. There's a historical reason and a philosophical reason. Philosophically, how are the last 6 relevant if you don't have the first 4? You see, the first 4 have to do with God. The last 6 have to do with humanity. Why is treating humanity good if there is no God? And I know there's arguments about this. Atheists, I'm not saying atheists can't be moral. I can't make moral decisions, can't do good things or know right from wrong. What I'm saying is that there's no foundation of that apart from God. So you say, well-being. Well, why should anyone care about well-being? One of the common atheist responses to what is the foundation of morality is they'll say human well-being. Why should I care about human well-being? At the end of the day, it's subjective. The foundation is subjective unless you have, which can mean anything. Anybody can have any foundation for morality unless there's an objective standard. The only way to have an objective standard is God. So what you're saying is, well, what's wrong with murdering, stealing, all that kind of stuff? We like those, so let's put those there. But not the first 4. Well, if you remove the first 4, there's no foundation for why murder is wrong. There's no foundation for why stealing is wrong. Whose well-being and humanity's well-being? Okay, well, what if it's beneficial to my well-being and the well-being of others for me to take your stuff without your permission? Is that okay?
Yeah, I rob now.
Like, you can't just claim well-being as the foundation because there's no reason to even determine why well-being would matter and whose well-being. At one point, slavery was considered okay and it would benefit the larger majority. There's also the historical context of this. Our nation, America, was founded on biblical principles. Now, I know there's been a lot of rewriting of history, but yes, our country was founded on biblical principles, Judeo-Christian beliefs. It was a government that established religious freedom for individuals, but the government was established on principles from the Judeo-Christian worldview. So, historically speaking, in the history of this nation, the 10 Commandments were a part of that, and you don't get to pretend they weren't just because you don't believe in God.
Would you feel comfortable saying the Pledge of Allegiance in class every day if the words were one nation under no God, indivisible with liberty and justice for all?
As far as saying the pledge, here's the thing. If you're an atheist and you don't want to say under God, then don't say under God. If the words were one nation under no God, then I would say the pledge and I would just say under God, and I would leave out the word no when I said it. We have to let go of this constant offense.
Oh, cry me a blizzard, snowflake.
This nation was founded on Christian principles. This nation was founded with a belief in a creator. It's in our founding documents. You don't get to erase history because of your personal beliefs. You don't believe in God, fine. Don't say under God. Just say one nation, indivisible, and just ignore the under God part if you're personally saying it. If you're uncomfortable with the words under God and you can't even be in a place where the phrase under God is uttered, there's a problem. And it's not the problem with the pledge, it's a problem with you. You don't get to change history because you are offended. That's just how it is.
Do you think it's just a coincidence that different religions are popular in different parts of the world? Do you believe that if you were born in Saudi Arabia, you would be a Muslim rather than a Christian? Is it possible that religion has less to do with what's true and more to do with the circumstances of where and when you were born?
So this is 3 different questions. So is it a coincidence? Do you believe it's a coincidence that religions are popular in different parts of the world? If I was born in somewhere like Saudi Arabia, would I be a Muslim instead of a Christian? And is it possible religion has less to do with what's true and more to do with where I'm born? So first of all, let's talk about the coincidence part. No, it's not a coincidence that different religions are popular in different parts of the world.
No, of course it's not.
For example, in America, Christianity is the most popular because the founders brought it here and founded the country on those Christian principles. Islam is popular in the Middle East because Muhammad brought it there. It's no coincidence, it's just history. But these last 2 questions are the real question he's trying to get at. Is it possible, or would I be a Christian if I was born in Saudi Arabia? Would I be a Muslim instead? And if that were the case, if I was a Muslim, would that mean that Christianity isn't true and it's really not about what's true, but based on where you're born? Well, first of all, I probably would have started as a Muslim in Saudi Arabia, although not guaranteed. There are Christians in Saudi Arabia who have children and raise their children as Christians. So it's possible that I would have been a Christian, but more than likely I would have been raised as a Muslim. But there's tons of Muslims who were born in Saudi Arabia, lived as Muslims, and then converted to Christianity. So just because you are raised that way, or that's what you are for a period of time in your life because you're born in Saudi Arabia, doesn't mean you would always stay a Muslim. But let me show the flaw in this thinking. All I got to do is flip this question right back on Hemant. If Hemant was born in Saudi Arabia, is it likely Hemant would be an atheist, or would he be a Muslim? The truth is, just like me, he'd likely have been raised and born a Muslim. So then the question becomes, is it possible that atheism has less to do with what's true and more to do with where you're born?
Reversed.
Do you see the flaw? Truth is truth, regardless if you've been made aware of that truth. For example, if I was born in some remote tribe somewhere in that doesn't have access to modern technology. So let's say I'd never heard of a TV or a phone in my life. Would that mean that phones aren't true and that people who believe that you can have the technology to talk on a phone are wrong simply because if they were born somewhere else, they might not know about it? That's a terrible argument. Truth is not based on where you're born. Truth is based on what is actually true, what can be proven with evidence, what is fact. It isn't based on where you're born, even though where you're born might determine whether or not you have access to that truth or hear about that truth. So this is not really a very good question and doesn't debunk Christianity at all. And if someone tried to use this to debunk Christianity, it would just turn around and debunk their own atheism in the same way. It's not a good argument. It doesn't work.
Well, that didn't work out, did it?
Do you believe childbirth is an example of a miracle? Does that mean Hitler was once a miracle baby? And if childbirth is a miracle, how come that miracle happens thousands and thousands of times every week?
Okay. So there are 3 questions here. Is childbirth an example of a miracle? Does that mean Hitler was a miracle baby? And how come this miracle happens thousands and thousands of times a week? All right. So when people say childbirth is a miracle, or they say it was a miracle, there are a couple of distinctions or things that need to be explained here. Miracle is not just a one definition word. There are multiple definitions to the word miracle. And the one that is most often used in discussions with atheists is things that would supersede the natural laws of the universe. So like natural laws of physics, natural laws of the earth, of the world. So, for example, walking on water would be a miracle because it defies the concept of gravity and buoyancy and things like that. Those things defy natural laws, and therefore they are deemed miracles. Childbirth is not really defying natural laws. It's just kind of an outworking of natural laws. So he's trying to argue, well, that's not really a miracle. But there's another definition to the word miracle. For example, Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines miracle in a few ways. One says an extraordinary event manifesting divine intervention in human affairs. Another one is an extremely outstanding or unusual event, thing accomplished. And there's one about Christian Science, a divinely natural phenomenon experienced humanly as the fulfillment of spiritual law. So ultimately, what is being referenced when it says it's a miracle is two things. Number one, it's an extremely outstanding event. The fact that human life came into existence, that's an extremely outstanding event. So that's definition number two. Another one says an extraordinary event manifesting divine intervention. And this is not really referenced in the natural processes of birth and even conception and fertilization. It's really the just concept that the fact that we can create life, that we can actually create life. If you think about that, that is only possible by divine intervention. God creates the soul. That's what is meant when it's talking about being a miracle. So it's kind of just a different description of what's being used or how the word miracle is being used. Dictionary.com defines it this way: an effect or extraordinary event in the physical world that surpasses all known human or natural powers and is ascribed to a supernatural cause. That's definition number one. But definition number two, such an effect or event manifesting or considered as a work of God. Number three, a wonderful or a wonder or a marvel, or a wonderful or surpassing example of some quality. So definition 3 and 4 there, that kind of is what we mean when we say miracle. Some adding in definition number 2, that it's considered a work of God to bring human life into the world, even though God uses natural processes to do it. So with that being said, when we say it's a miracle, we need to define that term correctly. So in that case, is childbirth a miracle? Yes. So the question is, was Hitler once a miracle baby? Yes. This is an interesting thought, because what exactly is Hemant trying to argue here? Is it Hemant arguing that before someone does something bad, or before someone through the course of their life takes on evil ideas and bad ideas, they are inherently evil to begin with? Even if that were the case, that would only make sense from a Christian worldview, that humans are born depraved, because without that, until they've done something evil, they're just natural biological processes occurring from an atheist worldview. So how would it make sense to say that Hitler was somehow evil from the beginning? Like, that doesn't make sense from an atheist worldview. But yes, he was a miracle baby. Before he did evil things, like, if you're viewing him and saying, well, he wasn't a miracle baby, he was evil, he was terrible. Well, I mean, what are you trying to get at? Are you saying we should kill babies because they might do something bad in the future? What do you even mean by this? Do you think all babies are evil just because some of them might grow up to be evil? What are you trying to even reference here? This is a weird question, and could have potentially very bad implications if you were to follow that through.
He started asking weird questions.
So I'm not sure where he's trying to get with that. Yes, Hitler was once a miracle baby, in the words of miracle, how we defined them a moment ago. And then, does this miracle happen thousands and thousands of times a week? Yes, that miracle happens. Again, that wouldn't make sense if you were using the word miracle to be something where it's an extraordinary event that suspends the laws of nature. And if you're talking about things like rare miracles, like people walking on water and rising from the dead and things like that, that's different. That's not the same type of word miracle we're using. We're using something that's wonder or a marvel, something to marvel at. That dictionary.com definition. And yeah, what's wrong with that happening thousands of times a week? Is there any contradiction with something being something to marvel at that happens a lot? That's not a good argument. So this is 78 questions for Christians from Hemant Mehta. All 78 are answered. The playlist is down below in the description to go back and watch all 78 questions. If you haven't subscribed already, click that subscribe button. Once we hit 500 subscribers, I'm going to be giving away a CSB Chronological Bible, which is an amazing Bible, study Bible that gets you through the Bible an entire year, reading it through chronologically. So like all the Gospels are interwoven. You see the story really come alive. A great way to study the Bible. That'll be given away at 500 subscribers. All you got to do is be subscribed. There's links to support the channel down below, and I will see you next time.